Welcome back to The Director's Cut, a podcast brought to you by the Directors Guild of America, featuring today's top directors sharing behind-the-scenes stories of their latest films and insights into the craft of directing. Please take a second to subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts. In this episode, Jeff Wadlow takes us behind the scenes of his new comedy horror adventure, Fantasy Island. Set on the mythical tropical resort where dreams can come true, the film shifts into nightmare territory as the guests of the enigmatic Mr. Roarke must solve the island's mystery in order to escape with their lives. In addition to Fantasy Island, Mr. Wadlow's credits include the feature films True Memoirs of an International Assassin, Kick-Ass 2, Never Back Down, and Cry Wolf, and episodes of the series Ryan Hansen Solves Crimes on Television and Agent X. After a recent screening of the film at the DGA Theater in Los Angeles, Mr. Wadlow spoke with director Christopher Landon about filming Fantasy Island. Listen on for their spoiler-filled conversation.
I'm Jeff Wadlow. Ooh, that's loud. I wrote and directed and produced this movie. This is my good friend, Chris Landon, who's hanging out with us on a Sunday night. Thank you for coming, Chris.
Hi guys. Hold on. To get my questions out.
Oh, he's got written questions.
Gonna get very formal, sorry.
Official.
All right, before I do this. So Jeff and I know each other. We're both, I guess, kind of like Blumhouse people, slaves.
We see each other around the halls.
So editorial at Blumhouse is in a moldy, sad building.
I think it's an old marijuana dispensary because there's a big safe in the bottom of the building.
Yeah.
And it smells terrible.
It smells like 1,000 tears. It's just filmmakers crying in there all day. But that's how we know each other. But I always, with these things, I always kind of want to know, because I don't know this about you. Like, where did it begin for you? Did you go to film school?
I studied film and history undergrad at Dartmouth, and then I went to the Peter Stark producing program at USC and made my thesis film, which was called The Tower of Babel. And this is the first production company credit for me, where I got to pull the whole Amblin and use my thesis film as my production company name. It was all I could come up with at the last minute, so forgive me.
So then, what was your first, what would you consider your first big break?
I won this thing called the Chrysler $1 Million Film Festival, where it was sort of like they wanted to do a Project Greenlight. Do you guys remember that show, Project Greenlight? Like Matt Damon, Ben Affleck? So Hypnotic, this production company that Doug Liman runs, wanted to do their version of that, and they sold the naming rights to Chrysler for $5 million, and Universal came on as a production partner, and I just finished at USC, and I entered my thesis film, The Tower of Babel, into that contest. It was like a 9-month survivor for directors, where we had to go to Cannes and make a short film featuring a Chrysler that we weren't allowed to move. It's very hard to make a movie about a car that can't move. And then we had to live in a house together and pitch a feature, and then we had to go to Toronto and make a presentation, and then they kept whittling us down, and at the end of it, I won it, and I was supposed to get $1 million to make a movie, but Hypnotic had spent all $5 million on this year of nonsense, and Chrysler wouldn't renew for the second year until my movie went into production, but there was no money. So we did this, my best friend, Bo Bauman from film school, he and I did this amazing thing where we got his aunt, who was a big casting director at the time, she was casting 90210, her name's Fern Champion, to come on as our casting director. We announced that we were casting. Universal was supposed to put up $500,000. They gave us the $500,000 because they thought we'd gotten the other half because we were casting already. We took the $500,000, we started shooting. We started to run out of money in the middle of photography because we never got the other $500,000. Universal shut us down for a weekend, looked at the dailies, thought we were doing a good job, and said, okay, we'll give you the other $500,000, but you don't get a penny more. And that was my first movie.
So that was a gamble.
It was a huge gamble. It's called Cry Wolf, starring Lindy Booth, who's actually sitting in the audience back there, the redhead.
Hi.
So that was my first first big break.
So this movie is really, really, really interesting because, I mean, I think everybody knows it's based on a beloved TV show.
Who here remembers? So can I interrupt for 1 second?
No.
Of the 11 of you here, who remembers the TV show? Nice. Really?
Did you really?
What did you do on it, sir? Yeah, of course. That's amazing. Well, in our extensive market research, we realized that most of the movie-going audience has no idea.
Has no idea what it is.
There's a TV show called Fantasy Island.
That's amazing.
So we fell between two stools a bit on that one. But
I mean, how did it? Because the thing that I find so fascinating about this, and I don't really know if this has been done before, but where the genre shifted wildly. So you turned this into a horror film.
Well, the show was always pretty dark. Was it dark when you worked on it? Oh, it was light. It got into its love
I always
boat.
remember it as being like pretty.
It got a little
light.
Yeah, it got a little soft in the later years when it sort of was drafting off a Love Boat. But early on, it was darker, and they definitely had darker episodes. Like there was a couple episodes where Roddy McDowall played the devil, which is scary. There was an episode that sort of seared in my mind as a woman went back to Salem during the witch trials, which was pretty intense. So there was definitely some darkness to it, and it has in its DNA this premise of be careful what you wish for, which I think is baked into almost every great horror movie ever made. Right? That you want something and you're punished for wanting it until you learn your lesson, and that just seemed so obvious in Fantasy Island.
But how did it all kind of? I mean,
so basically, I had this idea for a TV show, and I was working on it with a different producer, one of Jason's best friends, Michael Seitzman. Do you know him? He's a big TV producer. He did that show, Code Black. And I had this idea for a TV show. And it was before I knew they were making Dr. Sleep, and I wasn't even aware of the book, so I clearly had not done my homework. But I had this idea for a show that basically was about a hotel where you could go there and it was haunted and it would manifest your traumas from your past. And you could relive them and try to do things differently. And this guy who was connected to the hotel was sort of like a grown-up Danny Torrance meets Tony Robbins, and he would bring people there. And that I was developing that show, and it was inspired by Fantasy Island. And Jason heard I was doing this with one of his best friends, Michael Seitzman, and he got really annoyed that I was working with another producer.
As he does.
Yep. And so Jason, being the master producer that he is, called up Sony and got the rights to Fantasy Island, and then called me up and said, "Why would you do this TV show with Seitzman when you can just do the thing with me and I have the rights?" And I was like, "Well, that sounds like a better idea." And so I started working on Fantasy Island with Jason.
You filmed in Fiji?
We did. We shot the whole thing.
Beautiful.
In Fiji. Really is beautiful.
What is that like, though? I feel like it's got to be a challenge.
Super difficult, developing country. I think after I wrapped, we were exchanging emails, and you're like, "Why don't I write a movie that's set in Fiji?"
I always end up writing. I've written movies where we're in like waste treatment centers, and like I literally write like where people shit, and it's terrible. I always need to like figure this out. But you said this was really hard, right?
It was very difficult because Fiji is beautiful and it's a wonderful place for two people to go on a romantic vacation. It is not a great place to take 100 people and millions of dollars worth of equipment and try to shoot a movie because it is, while incredibly beautiful and rugged, they just don't have any infrastructure to speak of. So a perfect example is we were based in the most built up area of the city called Nandi, which is, it's not built up at all. In fact, that whole sequence where Maggie Q is running through the hallways, that was the only building I could find in all of Fiji that had interior hallways. Every other building had like open air hallways because why wouldn't you? You're in Fiji. So it was very, very, very difficult to find locations other than beautiful beaches. And so for the house, I wanted the colonial architecture to evoke the house and that they used in the original show. But colonial architecture does not exist in Fiji. It's very much a Polynesian kind of tiki hut vibe. So the one building that kind of worked was actually in the middle of downtown Suva with cars everywhere. And I had this plan to hang green screens. I mean, it was going to be a nightmare. I had a plan to cobble it together, but it was not going to be easy. And the last minute, someone showed me a photo of that house that's in the film. And in full disclosure, the house that's in the movie, the top 3 levels are CG. So the only thing that's real is the first level, right? And someone showed me that house that's just one floor, but it has that colonial architecture. And I was like, oh, that could work. And I went and I looked at it. I was like, and I saw these other bungalows, and I could just have characters walking around the premises. I wasn't cobbling it together and doing Roarke's office in one building and the lobby in another building and hanging green screens and using all the tricks just to connect the dots. And so I got very excited about it. I had this idea, this can be very cheap, because when we're shooting coverage, you'll see the first floor, which will be in the frame. And just for an occasional drone shot, I'll pop out and you'll see the full house. And that will be the only visual effects we need for the house. The rest will be practical. But the location itself was incredibly impractical because it was in a more remote part of Fiji. And I was talking to my line producer, and she's like, we cannot shoot for 2 weeks at that house. First of all, there's no hotels. I don't know where we're going to put the crew. Only 15-seater airplanes can land there. So we'll have to run like shuttle airplanes back and forth just to get our whole team there. We'd have to barge the gear there. It's like a 17-hour boat trip just to get the gear there. She said, like, the only thing that possibly makes sense is we can maybe buy out a cruise ship and put the cast and crew on the cruise ship and lash the gear to the deck and like have the kickoff party the night before and then sail there and then start shooting the next day. And I was like,
is that what you did?
That sounds like a pretty good plan,
Please
Robin.
tell me that's what you did.
And so that's what we did. We bought out a cruise ship. We lived on a cruise ship for 2 weeks. Had all the gear lashed to the deck. Every morning we'd have breakfast on the cruise ship, go to the island, shoot for half a day, go back to the boat, eat lunch on the boat, then go back, shoot another half day on the island. Sun would set, the crew and cast would like take sunset swims in the Fijian Ocean. It was beautiful. James Moran, my first AD and co-producers here. I know half the audience. And he helped obviously organize that and make that a reality. And it was one of the more memorable experiences of my life.
I hate you.
It was not a sewage treatment plant.
So you were talking about...
Yeah, so we shot the whole movie in Fiji for 36 days, right, Moran? But then, as you have to do on movies, there's a few pickups and additional photography, as I like to call it. I refuse to call it reshoots. And the studio just wanted a couple more scares. So the whole thing with Sloane, the blonde actress, and her doppelganger, that was something that I came up with after the fact. So we went and shot that in Louisiana about 4 or 5 months later.
So
thank you for the question.
Blumhouse, has their model in the way that they do things, and it's always on a pretty restrictive budget.
Yeah, we made that movie for $7.2 million.
That's impressive. Very
Thank
impressive.
You. That means a lot to me.
But yeah, I think the big question is how, because clearly there's a lot.
Well, first of all,
so
I'm lying. We didn't actually make it for 7.2. Fiji has a 47% rebate. So you push 7.2 million through a 47% rebate, and it makes a big difference. And then also, I got to say, the cast and crew is fantastic. We had this amazing crew. We got very lucky. It's basically a Kiwi film. So the entire crew is from New Zealand. And they had just finished shooting Milan for Disney. And the keys for the crew were basically prepping Avatar 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I don't know how many they're doing, but they're doing a lot of them. And while the keys were prepping, the rest of the crew came to Fiji. And we just bumped everyone up. And so we had this really A-level crew working on our F-level budget movie, and they were way better than we deserved. And they worked really hard. It was really actually quite heartwarming for me because, we didn't have trailers for the cast. We didn't have a single techno-crane day on this movie. It's my 6th feature film and the first one where I didn't have a techno-crane. But for example, we carried a fixed arm crane. And when we would have to set it up, the entire crew would set it up. It wasn't just the grips. It would be the camera department, the electricians, the art department. Everybody would help. It was a totally different vibe. It wasn't that kind of like, well, this is my job and that's your job vibe that sometimes you run into over here. It was much more of a like, we're all on the same team and we're going to help each other out. So that really made the difference. And then the other thing that made the difference was the cast. The cast was really fantastic. I told them ahead of time, I was like, this is going to be unlike any movie you've ever made before. You're not going to have a trailer. You're not going to have a chair. We're going to sometimes hike an hour to like a cave to shoot a scene. And we're going to put a blanket down on the ground and we're going to say, just hang out here for the next 30 minutes until we're ready for you. Bring your own hiking shoes. We're not going to give you hiking shoes. And they were amazing. They were all down for it. I think they had great attitudes. They were excited about the material. And really, and I would be lying if I didn't say that Fiji was the thing that pushed it over top, because at the end of the day, I could say to them, look, we're shooting in Fiji. You're never going to be working more than half the schedule. Bring your family. You'll have a great time.
Are there like snakes and things on the island?
Actually,
what's the danger of shooting
Fiji
there?
is very safe. There's a reason why Survivor shoots in Fiji. They've been shooting in Fiji, I think, for the last few years. More than that, they shoot every season in Fiji now. There's nothing in Fiji that can kill you on land. Yeah, so no snakes. No
just catering.
Yeah, just catering.
Okay. All right, let me see here. Okay, so one rumor that this was rated R at one point.
It was, in fact.
And was that an intended, you were going for R?
Yeah, no, I said to Jason, if we do this, it's got to be rated R. Because have you guys heard the story of how the show was created? Anyone know that story? So basically, Aaron Spelling was in the office of the president of ABC at the time in the mid-'70s, and TV movies were big business back then. And he pitched 10 made-for-TV movie ideas, and the president of ABC passed on all of them. And Aaron Spelling got very frustrated and said to the president of ABC, what's it going to take? A movie about an island where you can go and have sex with anyone you want? And he was joking, and the president of ABC said, well, that sounds like a good idea. And so Aaron Spelling left and hired Gene Levitt, who wrote the first made-for-TV movie, Fantasy Island. So when I was talking to Jason about it initially, I said, this has got to be a hard R. I mean, we have to be able to indulge in very dark fantasies. Otherwise, what's the point? He said, absolutely, buddy. You do your thing. Hard R. Let's go. And so I shot the movie, and we screened the movie, and we asked the audience, one of the questions on the questionnaire that we asked the audience when we did our first test screening was, what do you think this movie is rated? And I think it was like 90% said PG-13. And I was like, all right, well, this should be a PG-13 movie. Turns out the MPAA did not agree with us and gave us a hard R. And then we began that dance of, trimming this frame and that frame, which is so ridiculous.
Was it more violent? Was there more
blood,
gore and
it's blood? There's a couple swear words I had to lose. This Moran cost me thousands and thousands of dollars in post because we had these two extras that were booked as specialty extras who were willing to be topless at the party scene. And I had always planned to do like a little vignette during the montage with them, and that would be it. That was the only reason in my mind we booked them. But because the budget was so small, my monitor was like this big, right? So I'm at monitor shooting this massive party scene. We're doing, that crane shot where we went up and we revealed the party, and a couple drone shots and wide shots and things like that, except when we're coming in for coverage. And then I get in post, and there's like this topless woman in almost every shot. And I had no idea when I was looking at my monitor, but when you put it up on this screen, it's like, oh yeah, she is in every shot. Like it was some great AD work, the way you guys got her into every shot. So we had to CG a bikini top on this woman to get our PG-13. Thousands and thousands of dollars, yes. Yeah.
But then you get to do the, DVD
version,
the unrated.
There will be the unrated version for the digital download.
So do you rehearse a lot? Is that a thing for you? Or do you just don't even have the luxury of doing it?
No, I definitely rehearse. I told all the actors, again, Fiji helped. I said, you got to come to Fiji a week ahead of time.
Did you rehearse on the beach?
Yeah. They
Just
did.
hang out on the beach and rehearse.
And we spent a week together. And again, with a movie, with these low budget films, I don't know if you work this way, but the way I work is I spend a lot of time with the actors ahead of time. I sit down with each one of them and I go through the script just one-on-one, where I read all the other parts and they read their parts. And then I start working in pairs. And then I start bringing everyone together. And we have at least 1 or 2 days where we do the whole movie front to back together. And I make everyone sit there and we do it like a little play in a rehearsal space. And I say to all the actors, I go, any problems with lines, any questions, any issues, I want to hear it. I will rewrite lines. I will do anything you want right now. We'll talk about anything. Everything's on the table. But then when this week is done and we start to shoot, we're shooting this script. Whatever that script is, at the end of this week, that's what we're shooting. And I'm not debating lines on the day. I'm not talking about the ending of the film for an hour on the day, because I do not have the time. And also, that's a little bit of that's kind of bullshit. I probably would do that even if I had all the money in the world, because I actually believe that when you're shooting the scene, that's when you should be focusing on the dance between the actors and the camera, right? And how are you blocking the scene? How are the actors performing in a way for the lens so that you're capturing the moments you need? I think that you need to be looking at that kind of level of work at that point. And if you're still talking about the lines and who's saying what and when, I think you're missing your opportunity to really elevate your film.
But how do you feel about improv, though? Do you feel about them going off script, or is that kind of a no-no for you?
No, I love improv, but I think you have to be, certainly with this budget range, you have to be smart and contained. You have to be like, okay, I'm in this setup, I'm in this piece of coverage, I got the scene that's on the page. I always insist on shooting the scene that's on the page. So then at least I know I'm covered. Okay, I'm in your coverage. Let's try an alt on that line. You got an idea here? Let's try something different on here. And I always want to make sure that whatever improv we're doing works within the context of the editorial plan I have.
So one of the things, and I think it's probably, I can only speak for myself, but one of the reasons why I've gone back to Blumhouse and making these lower budget films is because you have unbelievable freedom. You don't really have anybody on set hovering over you and telling you what to do and telling you you're not getting the right coverage and they don't like this angle or they don't like someone's hair. And is that something that really brings you back to this world over and over?
Yeah, I don't look, if you want to move fast and you want to do it for not a lot of money, you can't second guess choices, right? You have to go with your gut. And, it's it's cliche. It's almost a cliche at this point, but the Malcolm Gladwell Blink book, puts forth the thesis that often your first instinct is your best one. And so I think the Blumhouse system rewards that kind of thinking. So it does bring me back. Listen, if somebody wants to give me a lot more money and they want to second guess all my choices, great, I'll do that too. But if we're going to be making the movie for limited resources, absolutely not. I cannot tolerate the second guessing because you just can't get it done. It can't happen.
Does anybody have any questions they want to ask before we go?
That's a great question. The question was when we were rehearsing and I said to the actors, now's your moment to change lines. Did they? I would say, yeah, some more than others. Actors will do this weird thing where they'll say oh, this line doesn't make sense, and they'll spend 20 minutes talking about it, and they'll keep changing it, and then by the end of the 20 minutes, it's pretty much the same line that you started with, but that's their process for understanding the intention and kind of owning it and making it theirs. So I'm fine with that. My goal and I say this to all my actors, I say to them, I just want you to look great. That's the only reason. My job is to make you look great, because when you look great, I look great. So if you're not happy about a line, you're not happy about some wardrobe or any choices we're making, let me know. Let's find something that you feel good about. I always tell you my intention and what I'm going for. And if you can help me find another way there that you're happier about, sweet. Because if you look great, then I look great. I am a big believer in that you should not plan for sequels. The question was, would there be a Fantasy Island 2? Because if you plan for a sequel, there's never going to be a sequel, is sort of my feeling on the topic. I think we've all read enough articles in the trades about planned trilogies that only had a single film that kick them off. So I have no plans for a sequel. Certainly, if it made financial sense for us to revisit Fantasy Island, I would love to go back to Fiji and live on a cruise ship again for 2 weeks. But as things stand right now, I'd say no. I mean, I liked that the ending was a beginning. I think there's a great symmetry in that. It's not I've been called out in more than a few reviews for just trying to set up a sequel, but that was not the intention. Like, I love the idea that an ending can be a beginning, because I do think it's an optimistic way to think about endings. Probably both. The question was, does low budget filmmaking make you better, or is it just a pain in the ass? Well, I actually want to know I'll answer it, but I want to hear your take too.
Definitely both. But more, I think it does force you into a more creative place. You have to be so nimble and creative, to solve problems. Because normally on a bigger budget film, it's really funny. I was in this last movie that I just shot, which was for Universal. We were also a low budget film, and they were sort of simultaneously making or finishing Cats, and I kept begging for money, like $5. Like, I was like with a little tin can, like begging for money, and they just kept saying no way. But I knew the millions of dollars that they were throwing at this other movie.
Groin removal.
And I think ultimately that can be a problem. I think that can actually hurt a film, because there is no bottom, and so they can just keep throwing money at the problem, but they're not actually digging in and fixing it in a meaningful way. And I don't mean to use that as an example, that other film, because it's far be it for me to judge. But I'm just saying, like, on these types of movies, like, yeah, you've got to figure your own way out of your own problems. So
yeah, and I teach a short film workshop in my hometown. I've been doing it for about 15 years, and I go back and I take high school teams and college teams and community filmmakers, and I take them through making a short film in 72 hours, where they have to pitch me, they have to write, I help them rewrite, I help them come up with a shot list, a production plan, they shoot it, I go to each set, I direct a scene with them, then we edit them together, we screen them on Saturday night and have a big party. And it's a really trying experience for all of them to make a short film like that in 72 hours. And I always say to them, look, when you're in a box, the only way out is up. And I do feel that's the case often with the films that we make for Blumhouse. I didn't properly introduce Chris Landon. He made Happy Death Day and Happy Death Day to You, and a bunch of great, fantastic genre films, some with Blumhouse, some without. So he knows better than I do this fact. But the other thing I was going to say about making movies in this budget range, in addition to being nimble, I've found you also have to be insanely stubborn, right? When you have the luxury of time and money, you can be like, yeah, let's try it that way. Let's try it this way. Sure, why not? But when you don't have the time or the money, and people are like, what about this? What about this? You just have to like block them out, and you have to say, no, we are doing it this way. We don't have the time. We don't have the resources to try this 3 different ways. This is the way we're doing it. And I hear everyone, but I don't have the time. So we got to just do it this one way. Trust me, please, let's go.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody, for hanging out. I really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the film.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. Don't forget, you can find past episodes of The Director's Cut wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks again for listening, and have a great week. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America. Music is by Dan Wally.